Today is the 16th anniversary of SaberTech, this very day, and 16 years ago, on November the 22nd, we had our opening reception at Lacaille on the Bow. So I think it's only fitting that I tell you a little bit about the start of SaberTech, and for those who have heard a version of this before, well, so what? I mean, it's kind of like Gilligan's Island show. The reruns are just as good as the original. So at the beginning of SaberTech in 1996, I was involved with a business with my brother. We had an auto glass business in a number of locations in Alberta. And I also had a marketing company. And I was sitting on the couch one day and watching this business show. And this business show featured a business trade exchange from this company out east, out in Toronto. And so I looked at this and I said, that's really cool. You know, we have shops, we have 3 guys in one shop. They can do 12 windshields in a day. But, you know, there's a lot of days where they only do 8 windshields or 9 or 10. So what about trading out the other 2 or 3, you know, do more volume that way? And I thought that was really cool. And then the next day, you know, I went to sleep. And then the next day I got up and I said, you know, that's even more cool. So I picked up the phone and I phoned this guy who they did the show on. And I phoned him, his name was Robin Maney, and I said, Robin, I said, this is a very cool idea, I like it, and I'd like to know more. Do you think I could come out to Toronto and take you for lunch and just ask you some questions? He says, better yet, he says, why don't you come to this conference? We're having this conference out in Toronto, and he says, it's $1,000 to get in the door. And I said, what? He says, it's $1,000 to get in the door. and I said, okay. So I thought about it, and I got on the airplane, and I went out to Toronto, and I walked in the conference, and they had trade exchanges. You have to understand that SaberTech is 16 years old, but the exchanges that I had come across, some of them were 15 and 20 years old already in New York and Connecticut and places like Chicago. So I walked into the conference, and I said, who are the top 3 trade exchanges? And I went and introduced myself to those exchange owners. And I said, you know, if it'd be okay with you, I'd like to buy you lunch today or tomorrow. And you know what? Wouldn't you know it? 2 out of the 3 said that, you know, one said coffee, the other guy was busy, and the other guy said sure. So I ended up having a lunch and then a coffee, and then the one guy invites me out to Connecticut. So I go home from Toronto, and I think, oh, I like this, I like this. So then I get back on a plane and I go to Connecticut, to Hartford, Connecticut, end up in Milford, Connecticut, and I'm looking around, and they got this office and this going on, and I walk in, and the trade brokers are on the phone, and they're doing deals. I said, I like this. This is kind of cool. So he tells me over 2 days, spent all kinds of time with me, crazy, and all kinds of time with me, and I said, I think I have a handle on this business. And I come home to Calgary, and I said to my friends, we're going to start a company called, I think, SaberTech or something like that. Anyway, so we're going to do this. And they kind of looked at me with this dazed look, you know, like, what the hell's that? And then I started telling some other business owners that I knew, and they said, well, that's kind of neat, and you know what? Well, what could I buy? And I said, well, there's nothing. I mean, I don't even have an exchange. He says, but get on the exchange, and okay, so I start off, and it's revved up and ready to go, and we're doing okay. You know, we're kicking out of the gate. I got a logo. Do you know our first symbol? Our first symbol was a saber-toothed tiger, and I figured, well, they're extinct, so maybe that's not a good one to stay with. So I didn't stay with that one. And we got going, and a number of months into it, we had competition. And we're growing, but the competition, quite frankly, is kicking our butt. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. And even a friend of mine who's in the room tonight says, Ken, you better get this thing going. You know, I mean, these guys are like really doing it. And I'm like, yeah, we better get it going. And meanwhile, you know, money's going out. I've like dumped all kinds of money into it. Money's going out, and we're going backwards. And it's like, so I phoned the guy back up, and I said, listen, I got to tell you, I'm getting my butt kicked out here. He said, tell me what they're doing again. Tell me what their plan is, their strategy. And so I told him, he says, won't work. He says, give it 6 months. It'll turn. So I thought about it, and I said, oh, okay. So I went to sleep, and I had the one, you know, a lot of you started businesses before. You know, you got one of these things going. And you're like, okay, I'm 37. I don't think I'm going to die today. But okay, so I sleep on it. Well, I didn't really sleep. And then I got up the next morning and I says, oh, what the hell? You know, so I sold a revenue property I had in Edmonton, took the money, dumped it into SaberTech, and put the gas pedal down, and it hardly went. But 6 months later, well, we still hadn't turned the corner. But 8 months later, 10 months later, we started to roll. And today, 16 years later, here we are today. We trade millions of dollars annually. We have fantastic clients. And that's it. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what we're all about. So where we are today, that's the history. And today, the goal is to double SaberTech. That's the goal. Make it better for everybody, make it fantastic for everybody, and kind of take it to the next level. My dream is to look at SaberTech and say, you know what, this is a pretty darn good exchange, a pretty incredible exchange, actually. But I want it to be like frickin', I want it to be like ultimate, like something, right? And so, like, that's what that's about. And my passion is to be able to do it with fabulous people that we have on staff and fabulous clients, because that's where the fun is.